some of it. And then I already knew that wasn't even going to be enough for you because there was only 4 pieces left, and you said you wanted yours cut.
I chopped up one for us to taste.
More.
I didn't even eat mine for bread.
Then why would you even chop up the first one?
I chopped it up for us to taste
You
it.
already know what hot dogs taste like. That's the whole hot dog wasted. Been eating hot dogs since you was 1. You still don't know how hot dogs taste.
All eyes are focused on Atlanta tonight as both sides start laying out their case in the murder trial of Ray Lewis. Good evening, everybody. I'm Stan Stovall.
And I'm Mary Beth Marsden. It was a tale of 2 crime scenes today. The prosecution told the jury it will be able to follow a blood trail from Ray Lewis's seat in a limousine to his hotel room, while his lawyers say everything the Ravens linebacker did was aimed at stopping the fight that led to the murders. 2 News' Jesse Jones joins us once again live from Atlanta with a wrap on today's proceedings. Jesse.
That's right, Mary Beth. Intense opening statements today, with the prosecution saying it has a trail of blood connecting Lewis to the victims.
The prosecution wasted no time putting Lewis at the scene of the double murders. DA Paul Howard told the jury that Lewis was a willing participant in the brawl which led to the stabbings of Jacinth Baker and Richard Lawler.
And that he drew his fist back and aimed the blow toward him. And he'll tell you that that blow was a blow that was one that was down in the bottom part of his chest area.
But Howard wasn't able to put a knife in Lewis's hand that night, and no one saw Lewis stabbing anyone.
Little Jacinth Baker.
And Lewis's attorney, Ed Garland, saw that opportunity and jumped right on it.
That he did not kill or stab anyone. That he did not use or have a knife. And that he did not cause, aid, or encourage anyone to use a knife.
Defense attorneys also attacked a prosecution witness who claims he saw Lewis kicking one of the victims. The problem, that witness, Chester Anderson, is in jail for identity theft.
But you'll find out he goes by different names. It'll be interesting to see what name Mr. Anderson uses when he comes here. But we'll ask him about his identities.
After opening statements, an employee of a local sporting goods store fingered co-defendant Sweeting as the person who bought 2 knives.
I talked to him. I was just making a conversation, and I asked him, who are you going to kill with this knife? And he said, is that the only thing you can do with the knife? I said, well, I know you're not going to cut tomatoes with it. So he got a little bit upset, and he said I was crazy.
Then Melissa Keeler, who witnessed the post-Super Bowl fight from her apartment, described on a dummy how one of the victims was beaten.
I thought he was dead right away. There was blood underneath his head. When they picked his head up and when they picked his leg up, there was no response in his body. It was lifeless.
That's right, intense testimony. The problem is Keeler could not identify any of the attackers either in a lineup or in court. Testimony continues tomorrow. Stan, Mary Beth.
All right, Jesse, thank you. And sports fans across the country turned on the TV today, but not for a game. Instead, they wanted to see the trial of Ravens linebacker Ray Lewis. The ESPN zone downtown was packed today as the murder trial unfolded on the big screen. The usual sports highlights were replaced by a real-life courtroom drama. And most of those watching said today they think that things don't look good for Ray Lewis.
And ironically, as fans watched the Lewis trial unfold, NFL owners gathered here in Baltimore to discuss responsible player conduct. The owners are trying to decide what can be done to police off-the-field behavior of superstars like Ray Lewis. Pittsburgh Steelers owner Art Rooney told 2 News that individuals need to pay the consequences for what they do.
It's up to you as an individual to be responsible, and you're accountable. And I think that the league does have to do that, make everybody accountable for what they do.
Ravens owner Art Modell briefly left the owners' meeting for a telephone update on the Lewis trial. He says his opinion of Lewis has not changed.
epic football career of Ray Lewis almost ended 13 years ago.
If there's something in your life that you know need changing, make sure you change it before God changes.
A fight breaks out, and when the dust settles, Jason Baker and Richard Lawler are left in the street.
Because if he changes, you might not like it.
A slide to the left, shimmy to the right, a wiggle of the legs, 2 chest pops, a lean back and a scream to the sky. If you're a Baltimore Ravens fan, let alone a football fan, you are all too familiar with the squirrel dance. The man who danced many a Sundays on a 100-yard field, hash-marked and logoed, a dance that has been emulated by professional athletes, wedding parties, and even preschoolers, is an outspoken, revered, but also hated man by those who believe he committed an abysmal crime 20 years ago. If there's something in your life that you know needs changing, make sure you change it before God's got to change it. Because if God's got to change it, you ain't gonna like it. Ray Lewis. This man, who is now 45 years old, has a New York Times bestseller, a bust in Canton, Ohio, is a prominent TV sports analyst, and has made millions of dollars and has witnessed his children grow into young adults and even athletes themselves. This is a man who rose stadiums to their feet, exalting his name as he led the city of Baltimore to not 1 but 2 Super Bowl victories through a turbulent but star-studded 17-year NFL career. However, that man 20 years earlier was a witness, and some say participated in an activity that marred his silver-lined life. In January of the year 2000, during the ecstatic peak of Atlanta, Georgia nightlife, in the wee hours of the morning after the Super Bowl matchup between the St. Louis Rams and the Tennessee Titans, future Hall of Fame NFL linebacker Ray Lewis was accused of participating in the ultimate act of violence, a double murder. You know what they say, nothing good happens after midnight, especially at 3:30 in the morning. At the age of 13, Ray Lewis was part of a dance group called the Hardy Boys, who stepped it up for competitions every Sunday and participated in parades near his hometown of Lakeland, Florida. In that group, Ray Lewis had a friend who had a very unique way of dancing that stuck in his mind throughout his years of football. In an ESPN article from 2008, Lewis recounts, "In my hometown, Kirby Lee, a childhood friend of mine who was in the armed forces, always used to do this dance. We named the dance the squirrel, the way the squirrel moves. He always did it. Kirby was my biggest fan. He has my number tattooed on his shoulder. I told him that one day I would do his dance, and he said, 'No, you won't. I'll never forget it.' I got in front of the mirror and I started flowing with it. The next week, I go to Marvin Lewis, who was the Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator at the time, and said, 'Look, man, they're going to introduce the defense. The stadium needs some excitement.' And he was like, 'Go ahead and do your thing.'" How did Ray Lewis earn the spot to be part of the starting introduction and kicking off Ravens home games with the squirrel for so many Sundays? An All-American linebacker and running back, and also a wrestler at Kathleen High School in Lakeland, Florida, Ray earned a scholarship to play Division I football for the dominant Miami Hurricanes, a football powerhouse located just a few hours down the I-95. For the Canes, Lewis earned All-American honors for 3 seasons, All Big East honors for 2 seasons, and in his final year was a finalist for the Top Linebacker in the Nation award, declaring for the NFL draft after his junior season.
With the 25th selection in the first round, the Baltimore Ravens have selected Ray Lewis, linebacker, University of Miami.
The Baltimore Ravens, who were about to commence their first season in the NFL, selected a 6'1" middle linebacker from Lakeland, Florida, who would eventually be enshrined as a statue standing outside their stadium and a banner hanging from the rafters. In his 17 years as a dominant middle linebacker for the Ravens, Ray put up first ballot Hall of Fame numbers, including 2 Super Bowls, a Super Bowl MVP, 8 All-Pro selections, and 13 visits to the Pro Bowl. He is the only player in the NFL with at least 40 sacks, 41.5 to be exact, and 30 career interceptions. Lewis's highlight reel is filled with top 10s, best of the best, and you can't miss these highlights. Ray Lewis is notorious for stopping even the most dominant players of the NFL, often coming right up the middle, obliterating the offensive lineman to get straight to the quarterback. His first sack of his career No other than his future head coach's brother, Jim Harbaugh, all the way back in 1996. Another major highlight, in one 33-14 wildcard victory in Foxborough in 2009, Ray Lewis sacked Tom Brady after the Baltimore Ravens had gone up 14-0. The sack came on a Lewis blitz that stunned Patriots running back Lawrence Maroney. Ray Lewis may be one of the few to have a solid advantage over Tom Brady. He had faced Tom Brady 3 times in the playoffs, coming out victorious twice. Even to end his career, Ray Lewis, who was out most of the season with a torn right triceps injury, worked his way back into top playing shape to continue his dominant ways when the Ravens took on the 49ers and head coach, and the first player he's ever sacked, Jim Harbaugh, in the Super Bowl. The last game of Ray Lewis's career. Ray was remarkable in the game as he had been for the last 17 years. Perhaps the most iconic plays of the game involved Lewis. On the final drive by the 49ers, Lewis made 2 crucial tackles, and then it was time to stop the young lightning-quick Colin Kaepernick on the final 3 plays from the 5-yard line. The first 2 passes fell incomplete, and then it was the final play where Ray Lewis's defensive and the secondary behind him forced Colin Kaepernick's final heave out of bounds. Ray Lewis had done it again, and for a final time, let the rush of silver streamers and purple confetti fall down on him as he raised the Lombardi Trophy high, going out on a goal line stand in the Super Bowl. What better way to end an exciting and exhilarating career? With every breathtaking highlight and accolade listed in ink for Ray Lewis, there is some darkness that surrounds the Hall of Fame player. That darkness is specifically when Ray Lewis was charged with 2 counts of murder, but ultimately ended in the conviction on charges of obstruction of justice related to the stabbings of Jacinthe Baker and Richard Lawler in Atlanta during Super Bowl week 20 years ago. Ray Lewis was only 24 years old in January 2000, but he was a star, an NFL linebacker clouded in a black and white suit and a black mink coat, adorned with enough diamonds and bling to buy a several-bedroom home in most cities. I mean, he was 24 years old with a $26 million NFL contract. The destination for Lewis that night was the Buckhead district of Atlanta, Georgia, which at the time was notorious for their streets being lined with bars and clubs, filled with hip-hop culture and the ultimate going-out spot, specifically in the night following the Super Bowl. One of those clubs was Cobalt, now a Japanese restaurant, which on that night was filled with celebrities, athletes, models, gang members, and of course, wannabes. Ray Lewis, like many others, was looking for a good time. He had his personal driver, Duane Fassett, chauffeuring a Lincoln Navigator, but not your typical Navigator. This was a 37-foot-long, 14-seat, $3,000 a day stretch limo. In that limo, with Lewis, was also a beautiful woman named Jessica Robertson. Not his pregnant fiancée, but a woman who he had met a few nights earlier at a party hosted by Magic Johnson. Around 1 a.m., early by Atlanta club scene time, he arrived at the Cobalt Club. But instead of taking a seat in the VVIP room, Lewis was on the first floor near the door so to catch the eye of anyone and everyone. Also with Lewis that night was Joseph Sweeting, a strip club promoter, who Lewis had known for several years since college, and Reginald Oakley, also a friend who had been around. The day before, these friends were also together, where Oakley and Sweeting had bought folding knives at a Sports Authority store while Lewis was conducting an autograph session. After several Remy Martin cognacs consumed by Lewis and other beverages that his friends and acquaintances drank, it was now 3:30 a.m. in the morning, and the entourage, that was around 10 people, including 4 women, headed out the door. According to eyewitnesses and court documents, Oakley was getting mouthy with a couple of guys from another room in the club, and then Oakley on the sidewalk outside the club got hit in the side of the head with a bottle of bubbly. As Ray Lewis said in a future testimony, all hell broke loose at that point. Everybody was throwing fists, everybody was punching. That is, everyone minus Lewis, who said he was observing while leaning against the Navigator while Sweeting, his friend, was assaulted by 2 rather large men. Lewis would testify, "I don't fight." However, during that fight, 2 young men lie on the street, pools of blood forming underneath them. The victims were Richard Lawler, 24, and Jacinthe Baker, 21. Now, they weren't upstanding citizens, both had police records, but nevertheless, no one deserves to die at a young age or in such a violent manner. Lawler had 5 stab wounds, 2 to the heart, 1 to the chest, and 2 to the abdomen. Baker was also stabbed straight through the heart and liver, and his face was in such disarray that there was a closed casket at his funeral. Both men were buried in Akron, a football hotbed located less than 30 miles away from the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. Lewis, seeing how the incident had led to blood and perhaps death, called for his crew to return to the limo, tires squealing as gunshots rained on their exit parade. The limo returned to a Holiday Inn Express where Sweeting was staying, and Lewis took a cab back to his hotel, the Georgian, a 20th century Beaux Arts beauty of a hotel. In witness recounts, the limo driver, Fassett, told the authorities that he saw Sweeting, Oakley, and Lewis all fighting, and said he heard Oakley said, "I stabbed mine," and Sweeting making the reply of, "I stabbed mine too." When police opened the hotel room in Lewis's name, they found blood, but not Ray Lewis, as he had rushed to his fiance's family's home. At 6 a.m. after the murders, Ray Lewis phoned his female friend, Jessica Robertson, requesting that she go to the Georgian Hotel and pack everything she had left in there. In recounts later on, Lewis told Miss Robertson and Robertson's brother to throw away a bag in his room that weighed about 4 pounds and made clanking noises. Witnesses said they saw men and a female exiting a large Navigator with a bag of laundry which was thrown into a dumpster. The investigation unit never found the black and white suit or black mink coat Lewis wore that night. Lewis had the Baltimore Ravens and his own private investigator one step ahead in the investigation process. Eyewitnesses suddenly began to change their stories, and all who were part of Lewis's entourage were equipped with their own attorneys. The trial was 4 months later, in a time that Ray Lewis should have been in NFL minicamp in Baltimore. During the trial, the driver, Fassett, recounted his story. He said under oath that he never saw Lewis hit anyone, and that brings us back to our original quote.
If there's something in your life that you know need changing, make sure you change it before God changes it. Because if he changes, you might not like it.
On June 4th, Ray Lewis's legal team and the prosecution agreed on a plea deal. Lewis would testify against Oakley and Sweeting, and in turn, he, Lewis, would receive a 1-year probation on the obstruction of justice. He also admitted to telling the people from the limo to shut the f*** up on tape, and Lewis later said in court that Sweeting had shown him the 4-inch chameleon knife at the Holiday Inn within minutes of the incident. And Sweeting had showed him in a punching type motion how he had used the knife. Robertson also took a plea deal of providing several garment bags to prosecutors, but none contained a black and white suit or a mink coat. Also, Jessica Robertson never had to testify in court. On June 13, 2000, after a mere 5 hours of deliberation, some newspapers said it only took 30 minutes, but the jury would acquit Sweeting and Oakley of charges of murder and assault. Their reasoning was self-defense. Later on, Ray Lewis settled civil suits with the victims' families for an undisclosed sum of money, supposedly millions, and in his book he would state, "I could not bring those 2 young men back. I had no hand in their deaths. I could not ease the suffering of those families, but I had so many blessings in my life. I told myself I could use some of those blessings for those good people. They were hurting. I was hurting. It was not an admission of guilt. It was an expression of love, of sympathy. I gave because I had it to give. I knew that money would never bring back what the families wanted most, but they asked for it, so I gave." As far as Ray Lewis's thoughts now regarding that night in Atlanta 20 years ago, he still holds no regrets. "If I had to go through all of that over again, I wouldn't change a thing. I couldn't. The end result is who I am now." Just like Ray Lewis becoming a changed man of God and putting the past of the year 2000 behind him, the area of Buckhead, Atlanta has transformed dramatically. The area that was once clubs and bars, with revelry existing until the wee hours of the morning, is now filled with upscale restaurants, luxury boutiques, and retail destinations such as Hermes, Dior, Jimmy Choo, and Louboutin. The Super Bowl was again held in Atlanta in 2019, and NFL players were more likely to be having a Riviera-style sea bass lunch at Atlas or purchasing a designer sports coat than being belligerent in the streets outside of a club at 3:30 a.m. That's probably a good thing. As someone once said, there isn't ever anything good that happens after midnight. Thanks for watching our latest murder documentary. If you really enjoy the content, please take a moment to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications, and to check us out on our other social channels in the description down below. If you happen to miss our earlier murder documentaries, I have them all in a playlist for you guys as well, and there should be 2 right in front of you. And with that, I'm your boy Microphone, and I'm dropping the mic until the next upload.
Across South Carolina this morning, Ray Lewis III. He's the son of former All-Pro NFL linebacker Ray Lewis. He's been arrested after police say he sexually assaulted 2 women. The 20-year-old turned himself in yesterday and was charged with criminal sexual conduct in the 3rd degree. According to police reports, Lewis's arrest comes after 2 women, 18 and 19 years old, were treated at a Conway hospital in January for sexual assault at an apartment complex near the campus of Coastal Carolina University. Arrest warrants say Lewis sexually assaulted the 18-year-old while she was under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Charges have not been filed, though, in the accusation made by the 19-year-old. As the investigation continues, Lewis was released on a $10,000 bond. He is suspended from CCU's football team indefinitely, but right now his status as a student at the university is still unknown. Ed Garland of Atlanta is Ray Lewis's attorney. He says in part, quote, Ray Lewis III states that he is not guilty of any criminal conduct. He is not guilty because no crime was committed. The sex with the accuser was entirely consensual. At the time of this sexual encounter, the 2 girls involved were fully conscious of what they were doing and knowingly consented.
All right, unfortunate news came to our attention by way of various news outlets. Ray Lewis, his eldest son, unfortunately passed away today for undisclosed reasons at this time. We found out via his younger brother, Rashawn, who shared the news in a heartbreaking farewell Thursday afternoon, saying, I really can't believe I'm even typing this, but R.I.P. Big Brother. He says, a true angel. I pray you're at peace now because I know how much you were really hurting. I don't and won't ever have the words, man, because this pain right here, I love you, I love you, I love you. Your niece gonna miss you, but she will hear about you over and over. Just watch over us all, big bruh. Be our guardian. I promise I'll make you smile. Now, Ray Lewis III was playing for the Wyoming Mustangs. They were a part of the Champions Indoor Football League. He was also a standout star back at Lake Mary Prep High School in Florida when he rushed for 1,800, almost 1,900 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 676 yards in the air and 4 touchdowns receiving during his senior season. He went on to play collegiately at Miami, Coastal Carolina, and Virginia Union. Very, very tragic and sad news, man. As a parent, this always hits home that this brother was 28 years old. And as a parent, that doesn't matter. They could be 8, 28, 18, 98, whatever the case may be. It is never easy to lose one of your children. And this is one of the biggest questions. If I could ever have a conversation with God, I'd ask him and get an answer back. Why you take children away from their parents, man? Like, that's just something that no parent should ever have to deal with. I wouldn't wish that type of pain on my worst enemy. Like, losing a kid is something that a parent should never have to deal with, never have to endure. But unfortunately, the reality of the situation is it happens far too often. It's happening as we speak. And unfortunately, tragedy touched the Lewis home. So we're going to send prayers out to Ray Lewis and his entire family during this very tragic time. In the way that his brother sounded, it may have sounded like, you know what I mean, this young man was hurt in some way, whether that be mentally, physically, whatever the case may be. So just watch over your people, man. Carry your family, even your children, man. I know that sometimes you could be hard on your kids. You and your kids may not see eye to eye. You're trying to teach them. You're trying to mold them into being something good. But always put your arm around them and let them know you love them. Let them know you care about them. I mean, I had to get rough with my son today. Had to really put the hammer down on him. But at the end of the day, I had to wrap my arms around him and let him know, listen, even though dad got to be rough on you sometimes, even though shit may not seem like it's always the sweetest, know and believe in your heart that I always love you. I'm always there for you. And you can tell me and share anything with me, no matter how difficult it may be, no matter how embarrassing. I'm here for you, man. And I'm sure that Ray Lewis was there for his son. And I can only imagine what he's going through right now, man. So condolences once again to the Lewis family. If y'all leave a comment in the comment section, let me know what you think of the situation. If you've happened to unfortunately deal with a loss like this, please, if you feel like it, you're comfortable enough sharing it in the comment section, I'd appreciate reading it And I send love and prayers definitely your way as well. But until next time, until next story, Sam, CEO of the brand Viral Hip Hop News. Love y'all. Love yourselves. Hold your family close. Hold your family tight. Let them know you love them every time you leave the room. You never know if you're going to see them again. But until next time, I love each and every one of y'all. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And I'm out of here, man. Peace.
I ain't gonna lie. I admit it. I fell in love with a hoe. Plenty of times. A couple hoes. But you know what? Fuck them. Fuck them.
Man, I was gonna go ahead and settle down with one girl, but then I got a haircut and said, fuck that. These hoes need me, you hear me?
Little quick little freestyle, little me-style, SDE style. Check me out, shout out Pop. I don't know what a nigga ought to do, Pops. Matter of fact, it's what I gotta do, Pops. On this track, I'm trying to talk to you, Pops. Cause these days, we ain't talking too much. You thought mama couldn't handle me, Pops. But look at she done made a man of me, Pops. No, this wasn't how I planned to be, Pops. But you already had a plan for me, Pops. And it wasn't the plan for me, Pops. Cause like you demanded me, Pops. Then you just scared of me, Pops. Hey, God had a different plan for me, Pops. Devil really got a hold of me, Pops. For a minute, took control of me, Pops. Even went ballin' at your alma mater, and I ain't got nothing to show for it, Pops. Because of you, these hoes staring me, Pops. Couple hoes tried sharing me, Pops. Hit one while the other one watch. And them hoes tried to lie to the cops. Perfect time on them while people watch. Them man 20 when you got a charge. Then I was 20, then I got a charge. But you paid that way and my life went hard, right? Don't know why these hoes comparing me, Pops. Yeah, you was great, and I made mistakes, but that don't mean don't take care of me, Pops. They told me fill your shoes, and I ain't want to. I just had to say that for clarity, Pops. Hey, they told me fill your shoes, and I ain't want to. I had to say that shit for clarity, Pops. Hey, my life almost feel like a parody. My grandma and mama take care of me. A quarter of a century scaring me. I talked to Jesus, he be sparing me. I could beef a knee green like a manatee. I cut everyone off like an amputee. And when nobody wanted never me, pat myself on the back. Garrity, never came from the block, but I'm hot though. Used to hang on the block like a lot though. Shout out my dear officer trying to stop us walking home. I got weed in my sock though. And I had to have that in my sock drawer. My grandma found that she ain't take it though. And I lied to her like that's oregano. Like grandma, I swear that's oregano. Used to brag about you back in show and tell. In this woman life, man, I wish you well. You can talk to the kids and teach them well. When you talk to them, make sure you teach them well. When they ask about your kids, you know what it is. Don't lie to them, nigga, be yourself. Hey, if history ain't taught it, repeat itself. Yeah, see my life has been broken in phases. And I gotta watch who I'm dating. Some people don't know they my dude, so they pop. So a nigga ain't never complaining. Found out about my daddy, they hating. I be making them hot like I'm Cajun. These days niggas getting mistaken. But I'ma be more like a raven. Y'all say mad stuff out here. Hot breath ass niggas. ABE, gang gang, potty train, nigga.